All right, let me start with a little fact that might make you raise your eyebrows. The average American household has around 300,000 items in it. 300,000! No wonder so many of us feel completely worn out when we even think about decluttering. And here's something even more interesting. Most professional organizers don't actually share the real psychological tricks that make decluttering last. They'll happily sell you more bins or labels, but the truth is, lasting change happens in your mindset, not in your storage closet. So today, I want to let you in on a few of those secrets. These are things I've seen work in real homes, with real people who were just plain tired of feeling buried in stuff. And I promise, it's not about becoming a minimalist or tossing out everything you own. It's about shaping your home into a space that actually supports the life you want now. Let's start with the first little secret. What I like to call the future self method. It's simple, but it changes everything. You see, most of us make decisions about clutter by looking backward. We ask things like, well, did I use this last year? Might I need it again someday? And that kind of thinking traps us in the past. You end up holding on to a life you might not even want anymore. The better question to ask is, does this belong in my future? That's the shift. Instead of protecting the past, you're curating the next chapter of your life. And trust me, that changes the way you look at every single item in your home. Here's how you start. Step 1 is to get really clear about what you want your home and your life to look like moving forward. Maybe you imagine yourself hosting dinners with friends, or maybe it's finally having a cozy corner where you can read without tripping over piles of things. Maybe it's getting back to a craft or hobby you've been neglecting. Write that vision down. I mean it. Don't just think about it. Actually put it on paper. Once you have that picture in your mind, step 2 is the decision-making part. Instead of asking, will I ever need this again? Ask, does this support the life I'm building? If the answer is no, out it goes. If it's a maybe, it probably doesn't. And if it's a yes, then that's an easy keeper. Step 3 is where it starts to feel freeing. You keep only the items that fit that vision of your future. The rest? You can thank them for serving their purpose and let them go. You're not just throwing things away, you're making space for what actually matters to you now. I'll give you a real example. I worked with a woman named Martha who had an entire cabinet stuffed with cookware. We're talking every pot, pan, gadget, and specialty dish you can think of. The thing is, she wasn't cooking big family meals anymore. She wanted her kitchen to feel open and easy, not like a battlefield. So she asked herself, which of these pieces belong in the future I want? She kept her favorite skillet, a baking dish she used often, and one nice serving platter. The rest went to neighbors, family, or donation. And you know what? She said every time she opened that cabinet afterward, she felt like she could breathe again. It's funny how something as simple as a cabinet can make such a difference in your daily mood. And here's the best part. This isn't just about organizing. It's about giving yourself permission to move forward without guilt. So, let me ask you this. What's your vision for the next chapter of your home? Is it more space to host people? Or maybe finally creating a craft room? Or even just a calmer living room where you can actually relax? Share it in the comments, because I'd love to hear what you're aiming for. Oh, and while you're at it, just out of curiosity, which city are you watching us from? That question is just for fun, and it helps grow our little community here. The thing is, once you shift your thinking toward your future self, decision-making suddenly gets a whole lot easier. You're not arguing with your past anymore. You're shaping your space to match who you are today and who you're becoming. And when you walk into a room that actually fits your life right now, you'll feel lighter, like your home is finally working with you instead of against you. Now, the first secret was all about shaping your space to match the future you want. But let's be honest, sometimes it's not the pots and pans or the random gadgets that weigh us down. It's the sentimental stuff, the photos, the letters, the gifts, the keepsakes, those boxes that you can't quite bring yourself to open, but you also know are taking up way too much space. Here's a little fact that might surprise you. Studies show that about 65% of adult children actually don't want their parents' possessions. Not the china, not the furniture, not the piles of keepsakes. And that's not meant to be hurtful. It's just that they're building their own lives and have their own style. Which means a lot of the things you've been carefully saving for later may not really be wanted later at all. So that brings us to the second secret, the legacy timeline technique. And this one is all about taking control of what you pass on, what you enjoy, and what you release. Think of it like organizing your memories instead of just your stuff. Here's how it works. You sort sentimental items into 3 categories. The first is enjoy now. These are the treasures that make you smile every time you see them. The things you should actually be displaying or using instead of keeping in a dusty box. Why keep your favorite family photo hidden away when it could be framed on the wall where you'll see it every day? The second category is digitize. Not every letter or photograph has to be stored physically. You can scan them, snap a picture on your phone, or create a digital album. That way, you keep the memory but free up the space. And trust me, once you start flipping through those images on your computer or tablet, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. And the third category is pass down now. If you already know that a family member would love an item, why not give it to them today instead of saving it for some later time? That way, you get the joy of seeing them use it, and they get the story behind it directly from you. One of the most powerful steps here is what I call a legacy conversation. This is where you sit down with your family and actually ask them, what means the most to you? It might surprise you. Sometimes the items you think are the most special aren't the ones they care about, and the little simple things turn out to be the treasures. Having that conversation saves years of confusion and storage down the line. I'll share another story from Martha, the client I mentioned before. She had bins upon bins of her children's artwork, finger paintings, macaroni crafts, essays, you name it. She was convinced her kids would want them all someday. But when she asked, each child picked just a few favorites. The rest she photographed and made into a digital album that everyone could enjoy. That one shift cleared out 4 giant bins and turned them into one slim book she could flip through anytime. And here's something worth pointing out. Having too many sentimental items can actually water down the meaning of each one. When you narrow it down to the few things that truly matter, those items become so much more powerful. A single shadow box with 2 or 3 meaningful pieces can hold more weight than a dozen boxes in the attic. So let me ask you, who have you asked about your keepsakes? Have you had that conversation yet? Because once you do, you might be surprised at the weight it lifts off your shoulders. The beauty of this legacy timeline technique is that it keeps the memories alive without keeping you stuck under piles of stuff. You're not erasing history. You're choosing the best pieces of it and letting go of the rest. And more often than not, the memories feel even stronger once the clutter is gone. Now, we've talked about shaping your space for the future and sorting through the sentimental things with your legacy timeline. But here's the thing. So much of clutter isn't about the stuff itself. It's about the feelings attached to it. That's why the third secret is all about emotions, not objects. I call it the emotional anchoring system. Here's what I mean. Every time you pick up an item, there's usually a story behind it. Your spouse's old tools, your child's first pair of shoes. Those aren't just things. They're tied to people, moments, and memories that matter to you. The problem is, we often keep all of it, thinking that if we let go of one thing, we're letting go of the memory too. And that's just not true. The emotional anchoring system works by identifying the core stories behind your belongings and then choosing one or two signature items that best capture those stories. Think of it as creating a highlight reel of your memories. You don't need every single object to hold on to the feeling. You just need the right ones. Here's a simple example. One of my clients had an entire toolbox full of her late husband's equipment. She wasn't using them, and they were taking up half the garage. But each time she looked at them, she thought of him. Together, we picked one hammer, the one he always used, and a photo of him working in the garage. We mounted the hammer in a shadow box with the picture. Suddenly, that one display carried the weight of dozens of dusty tools, but in a way that honored the memory and freed up the space. And that's the magic of anchoring. You're not erasing the past, you're spotlighting it. There are lots of creative ways to anchor your memories. A shadow box is one option. Another is making a memory quilt from old clothing. I've seen beautiful quilts stitched together from shirts, dresses, or even baby clothes that would have otherwise sat forgotten in a bin. Not only does it keep the memory alive, but it gives you something cozy and practical to use. You can also set up a small storytelling corner in your home. Maybe it's a shelf with a couple of framed photos and one or two keepsakes, where you can pause and reflect whenever you walk by. That one little corner can feel more meaningful than a dozen boxes stuffed under the bed. Here's a question for you. If you had to choose just one item that best captures your fondest memory, what would it be? Think about it. Because once you figure that out, you'll see how powerful this method can be. When you start anchoring your emotions to a few special items instead of holding on to everything, you'll notice something. The weight of stuff begins to lift. Your home feels lighter, but your heart doesn't lose anything. In fact, the memories often feel sharper, more intentional, when they're honored in this way. And let's be honest, having a beautiful quilt or a display on the wall is a whole lot more enjoyable than digging through bins in the basement once a year. This is about creating daily joy, not storing away the past. So, we've talked about shaping your space for your future, choosing which memories to keep close, and anchoring emotions in meaningful ways. But here's the truth. None of it sticks if new clutter keeps sneaking in. That's why the fourth secret is so important. I call it the Threshold Mastery Protocol. Think of it as your guardrail against re-cluttering. Here's the tough part. Studies show that 78% of people who declutter end up filling their homes right back up within 18 months. Why? Because they never built a system for handling what comes in the door. You can clear out all you want, but if you're still letting new piles accumulate, you're just spinning your wheels. So, here's how threshold mastery works. The first step is to list your personal triggers, the reasons clutter sneaks in. For some people, it's emotional shopping, those little treat yourself moments that add up. For others, it's obligation gifts, the things you keep just because someone gave them to you. And then there's aspirational buying, the hobbies, the clothes, the gadgets for a life you wish you lived but don't. Once you know your triggers, you can spot them before they take over. The second step is to craft your own threshold questions. These are little pause buttons you press before you let anything new into your space. For example, You might ask, am I accepting this because I actually want it? Or because I feel guilty saying no? Or, does this belong in the future I'm building? Simple questions, but they can save you from dragging clutter right back in. Then there's the 48-hour pause rule, and this one is a game changer. Whenever you're about to bring something non-essential into your home, wait 2 days. No exceptions. If you still want it after that, fine. But 9 times out of 10, the urge fades. Studies show that just this pause alone can cut impulse buys in half. Half. That's a lot of clutter stopped before it even starts. Another practical trick is the consideration shelf. This is just a little spot near your entryway or in a closet where you place items you're not sure about. Instead of committing right away, they sit there until you've decided. If after a while you realize you don't actually need or want them, out they go. It's like a waiting room for stuff, and it works wonders. I'll give you a simple example. One woman I worked with kept every single gift she was given, whether she liked it or not. A candle she didn't enjoy, a vase that wasn't her taste. You name it, it went straight into her cupboards. Once she started asking herself, am I keeping this out of obligation? She realized she could say thank you, appreciate the gesture, and then let the item move on. Suddenly, her cupboards had space again, and she didn't feel weighed down by other people's choices. That's what this is all about, protecting the space you've worked so hard to reclaim. Because, let's face it, decluttering once is hard enough. Why do it twice if you don't have to? So let me ask you, what's your number one trigger when it comes to new stuff sneaking in? Is it shopping? Gifts? Or maybe just saying yes too quickly? Think about it, because knowing your trigger is the first step in stopping it. And here's something to remember. Your home should work for you, not against you. Every item that crosses your threshold should earn its place. When you stick to that, you won't just have a tidy house for a season. You'll have a space that stays clear, calm, and truly yours for the long run. And at the end of the day, that's what all these little secrets add up to. A home that supports the life you want now, honors the memories that matter most, and keeps clutter from creeping back in. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to feel good to you when you walk through your own front door.